State's farmers made a strong advancement harvesting their winter wheat crop in the past week. The 62% completion is now ahead of last year's pace and Nebraska's 5-year average. We recently talked with Nebraska Extension educator Berger, who said that open ground could be a good opportunity for farmers and ranchers looking for additional forages.
Yeah, so as we think about harvest is going on in Nebraska with wheat right now, and we've had a lot of good moisture. In fact, there's probably moisture in the profile. There's an opportunity to go back and plant that to a summer crop, but we not to traditionally like we think a summer annual, but a spring annual. And most of the time we think about planting spring annuals in that March, April time period. But if we go something like a spring triticale or oats or barley, that planted late July through early to mid-August can produce quite a bit of fall forage for us. And the day length is shortening, and so that forage is kind of in a hurry, so to speak, to get up. It's pretty leafy, and we'll have some good quality grazing if we plant that by the 1st of August, by the 1st of October. And then we've really got some different options there for us, and we can either graze that directly, we can put it up as hay or chop it for silage, or we can leave it standing and just utilize it as winter feed. And so it's an interesting opportunity, I think, one we don't often think about. The other nice option is that spring annuals are going to go ahead and winter kill. Then if we want to go back into that ground next spring with maybe a corn crop, we're going into a seed bed there that's already prepared from a not having to go out and do much of a weed control type standpoint like we would if we planted a winter annual.
How do you decide, if you haven't had much experience with it, or if you have but you've used specifically one, how do you decide which forage you should go with?
I think any of those three are really good options depending on what you have available. So in my mind, really, it probably comes down to seed cost and what's available to you locally. The spring triticale, the oats, the barley, all of those are good options. And also, we don't necessarily have to go with a forage type. We can go with a grain type. Again, because of the day length shortening, that tends to trigger those even grain type forages or grain type of those forages to go ahead and be a little more leafy than if we were going to be planting them in the spring.
How much production should you expect?
I think it's reasonable to expect around 1.5 tons all the way up to 4 tons, depending on soil fertility and available moisture that we get from the time of planting until we harvest it.
And the nutrient value?
Yeah, so that's really the interesting thing to me. We can grow some pretty high quality forage here in this fall time period with these spring annuals. And depending on when we go out and graze it or harvest it, if we let it go to that late boot, early head stage, it's going to be in the mid-teens in terms of protein and in the mid-60s, even upper 60s from a TDN standpoint. If we go ahead and just kind of let it freeze out there, if we get it before it's really fully headed, it'll hold its quality through the winter. And we had some trials we did here at the High Plains Ag Lab at Sydney where we just left it standing, planted in early August, left it standing till the following March. Early March, it was still 10% crude protein, around 60 TDN. So that's the real interesting, I think, thing about these spring annuals is the opportunity to hold their quality through the fall and into the winter.
We'll link to more resources on planting forages into wheat stubble on the Market Journal website, including a webinar from Aaron that further explains the practice.